McDonald. Number 1 is Special Tucson, owned by John Perrin, Ed Patterson, Doug Adair, and Jack Lockhart, driven by Bob Harper. 2, Lakewater Bird, owned by Eldon Spearman with Brad Hanners. 3, Fortune Quest, owned by David Ehrenberg with Charlie Neff. 4, Bandit Leader, owned by Ken Briggs, Sandy Beatty aboard. Number 5 is Wake Your Wish, owned by Roger Wither, Dave Hawk on the bike. 6, Cool Ambition, owned by Robert McCurdy and Craig Parker with David Miller. 7 is Beeler's Boy, owned by David Young with Jack Morgan. 8, Flaming Rocky, owned by Wilson Witten and Regina Willinger with Jeff Fout. 9, Raven Elmer, owned by Walter Kaplinger with Jeff Smith. 10, Faye Sam Spade, owned by Nancy and William Myers. Mike Wilder will be in the sulky. Field for the first race. Second race, scratch 5, Mont Royal. Field is now in motion. And there they go. They're off and pacing. Wake Your Wish between horses. Cool Ambition on the outside. The 6 is off stride. 6 is on a break. Cool Ambition. They're down the backstretch. With a rush between horses, here comes Lakewater Bird right alongside Fortune Quest. These two guys kick out for lead and Special Tucson is along the rail. Wake Your Wish is parked very wide on the outside. Off stride. Now it's Lakewater Bird. A little bit of confusion in here as they settle down now by the opening quarter in 28-3. Racing past the stands to the half-mile pole. Fortune Quest forges to the front. Here's Wake Your Wish driving up on the outside second. Toward the rail, Special Tucson is into third. Faye Sam Spade, the 10, is away safely to fourth after that Bandit Leader. Followed by Raven Elmer, gap of 6, Cool Ambition up on the outside. Flaming Rocky along the rail, Lakewater Bird, and at the end the trailer is Beeler's Boy. As they hit the half-mile pole in 57, they're on total missions now as they straighten out down the backstretch. Fortune Quest opens up 5 lengths. Special Tucson is second. Here comes Faye Sam Spade moving up on the outside. Bandit Leader tips and rolls, saving ground Raven Elmer. Dropping back, Wake Your Wish. The favorite has now got some work to do, but not out of it completely. Cool Ambition. Far outside, Flaming Rocky. Gap of 5, Lakewater Bird. And at the end, the trailer remains Beeler's Boy. 1:26-4. Trying to set a world record in a maiden condition claimer. Fortune Quest continues to lead the ray. Here comes Cool Ambition, who spotted him 20 on the outside. Has now got 4 to make up with about a 1/16 of a mile to pace. Fortune Quest will have to hold off the favorite who's closing with every stride. Cool Ambition is still coming at 2-5, and he is gonna reach. Cool Ambition, Fortune Quest, and Faye Sam Spade third. Here's the winner of tonight's first race. Number 6, Cool Ambition. 2-year-old bay gelding by Kentucky Spur out of Blonde Ambition, owned by Robert McCurdy and Craig Parker of Delaware and Columbus, trained by Craig Parker. Driven tonight by David Miller to cover the mile here in 1:59-1 and establish a lifetime best. Number 6, Cool Ambition, the winner of the first. 6-3 exacted, $19.40. The try, $87.60. Post time for race 2 in 14 minutes at 7:54. Scratch number 5, Mount Royal 6. Scratch 5, Mount Royal 6. Post time in 14 minutes at 7:54. 7:92, 4:61, 10:8. Here's the field for tonight's second race. The bugler right now is on a union break. He promises to be back for the third. Here's the 1, Bruz, owned by Richard Mabra and Michael Colvin, driven by David Hawk. 2, Bo Hanover, owned by J. Pat Huber, Harold Breedenbach, and Kathy Montgomery, and the driver is Dick Richardson Jr. 3, Bit of Brandon, owned by Paul Whitmore, driven by Cliff Wilkinson Jr. Number 4, Meadowland Freedom, owned by Tamara Hoovler and Mike Metters with Brad Hanners. 5, Has Been Scratched. 6, Olay Bullet, owned by Kevin Manley with Ryan Holton. 7, A Special Spike, owned by Francis Hammond and Mary Bach with Keith Haynes. Number 8, Tucson Charlie, owned by Scott Mogan and Donald T. Miller, and the driver is David Miller. And number 9 is Sodbuster, owned by John Cooper. David Myers will be in the sulky. Scratch the 5, Mont Royal, 6 minutes till post. Field is now in motion. And there they go. They're off and pacing. Bit of Brandon takes the lead. Bruz along the rail. Jumping off stride, that's the 4, Meadowland Freedom. They're down the backstretch. Bruz, rail advantage, has the top by a length. Bit of Brandon drives up on the outside. Second, Bo Hanover moves in to be third. Followed by Special Spike in fourth. Tucson Charlie is next. Followed by Sodbuster. Ole Bullet away a bit slow. Quickly back down pacing. Meadowland Freedom. Solid opening quarter of 28-2. Past the stands, they roll to the half-mile pole. Bit of Brandon up on the outside now gets the lead. Bit of Brandon drives away on top by 3. Bruz settles back into second. Followed by Bo Hanover, ranging up on the outside. Tucson Charlie getting caught in along the rail. Special Spike setting sail from the back of the pack. Sodbuster, Ole Bullet. And the trailer is Meadowland Freedom. They're at the half-mile pole, 58-1. They're out of the turn and down the backstretch. Bit of Brandon by a length. Bruz on the outside second. Here comes Tucson Charlie with a rush. Bo Hanover not doing enough at this stage to fourth. Moving up on the outside, Sodbuster fifth. Special Spike, Ole Bullet, very rough on the outside, and Meadowland Freedom as they chug to 3/4. Bruz on the outside gets the short lead. Racing wide, though, fighting back. Bit of Brandon, 127-3. Driving around the far turn. Bruz gets command 3 parts of a length. Tucson Charlie is on the attack second. Bit of Brandon giving way along the rail up on the outside. Sodbuster and Ole Bullet on the grandstand side. They're fanned out 5 wide in the final 16. Bruz brings them home. Sodbuster is up on the outside. Ole Bullet on the far outside. It's Bruz, Sodbuster, and Ole Bullet very rough at the end. And please hold all tickets. $17.80. Windows are now open on tonight's third race. Superfecta and Execs. Number 1 is You Dreamer, owned by Nell Blue. Ryan Holton drives. Number 2, Long Gone Destiny, owned by Rodney Henry, and the driver is Rocky Stidham. 3, Stonehammer, owned by Russell Britton. David Miller will be aboard. Number 4, Christmas Quigley, owned by Gerald Woodard, with Brad Hanners aboard. Number 5, Cinder Jig, owned and driven by Dan Aids. Number 6, Eat at Sammy's, owned by Richard Slaughter with Dave Hawk. 7 is Mel's Image, owned by Alan Butteroff, driven by Charlie Conrad. 8 is Almost Ready, owned by David Niggemeyer, and the driver is Darren Melzer. Number 9, Shockham Norm, owned by Richard Alexander. Jack Daly will be in the sulky. Field for race 3, 6 minutes till post time. Starting gate is underway. Field is now in motion. And there they go. They're off and pacing. Eat at Sammy's between horses takes the lead. Stonehammer toward the rail. Long Gone Destiny on the rail. Here's Almost Ready with a rush on the far outside. Christmas Quigley moves in to be 5th. Followed by You Dreamer in 6, Racing 7, Cinder Jig. Mel's Image and Shockham Norm, and a good clip here to the quarter-mile pole. The Hawkman's out at top with Eat at Sammy's first to flush. Coming with a rush here, Stonehammer up on the outside and a quick 27-4 past the stands to the half-mile pole. Here comes Christmas Quigley on the outside to challenge Stonehammer for the lead. From the outside, Christmas Quigley, Stonehammer along the rail second. He's going to go right on. Around the paddock turn, Eat at Sammy's into third, Almost Ready fourth. Jumping off straight on the outside, that was Christmas Quigley. They're at the half-mile pole. Stonehammer leads the way in 57 flat. Eat at Sammy's regains the pocket in second, Almost Ready third. Long Gone Destiny swings up on the outside fourth. Underway, You Dreamer, gap of 4, Mel's Image, toward the rail, Cinder Jig on the far outside, Shock 'em Norm. And we're down to these 8 as Christmas Quigley is the distant trailer, racing to 3/4. From the outside, Long Gone Destiny goes on by Stonehammer to get the lead. Eat at Sammy's will have to wait for the passing lane. Here comes You Dreamer up on the far outside, almost ready, shuffle back 5th. Between horses, Cinder Jig on the far outside, Shock 'em Norm, Mel's Image, and Christmas Quigley in 127-1. Top of the stretch. They're in the stretch. It's Long Gone Destiny with a short lead. Here comes Eat at Sammy's along the rail. Stonehammer's in between horses. Eat at Sammy's now gets the lead. It's Eat at Sammy's in front. Three-year-old bay colt by No Nukes out of Yankee Affair, owned in Newark by trainer Richard Slaughter. Hard driven by David Hawk to cover the mile here in 158-1. Number 6, Eat at Sammy's, the winner of tonight's 3rd race. The 6-2 Exacta, $70.60. The Superfecta, $668 even. Windows are now open on tonight's 4th race. Scratch number 6, Velvet's Message, lame. Number 8, You're in My Shadow, has been scratched, sick. Post time in 13 minutes. The 5th is clear. 6th race, number 4, Classy Falcon, continues to race on Lasix. Hammer 3rd, Christmas Quigley was 8th. Cinder Jig 5th, Eat at Sammy's the winner. Here comes the field for tonight's 4th race. Start of the early pick 3, One Message from Dan. Owned by Mary Kearns, Terry Holton drives. 2 is Stormy Wiz, owned by the White Creek Stable driver David Myers. 3, I'm Moving, owned by Homestock Farman David Hawk. 4 is Gray Frost, owned by Walter Stamen, driven by Bradley Hanners. 5, Bone Road, owned by Bill Ferris. Dallas Miller will be in the bike. 6, Velvet's Message, scratched, lame. 7, Ratajack, owned by Jerome Reaney, and the driver is Sandy Beatty. 8, You're in My Shadow, has been scratched, sick. 9 is Shiv, owned by Tom Blankenship and Ralph Sturr Jr. with David Miller. 10, Send the Message, owned by Marjorie Hahn, Francis Beard, Robin, and Patricia Roll. Dan Ader will be in the sulky. That's the field for the 4th. 8. They're off and trotting. Shiv on the far outside takes the lead. Gray Frost, the 3 is off stride. I'm Moving, they're down the backstretch. Shiv, middle of the racetrack, now moves inward, takes the lead by 2. Gray Frost follows in second, Ratajack, and after that it's Stormy Wiz. As they make their way to the top turn, Bone Road moves in to be 5th. A gap of 4, Message from Dan. After that comes Send the Message, back down trotting, I'm Moving. Moving by the opening quarter in 28 4/5. Past the stands, they roll to the half-mile pole, and Shiv, bouncing along, has got the lead. Gray Frost, 6-5 favorite, stalking second, followed by Ratajack in 3rd, and Stormy Wiz about ready to slingshot from 4th. Bone Road 5th, Message from Dan after that. Send the Message in Thunder Dan, and at the end the trailer is I'm Moving around the clubhouse turn to the half-mile pole. Shiv trying to make every pole of winning one, continues to lead the way. Gray Frost is in the second here. Stormy Wiz coming with a rush on the outside. They're at the half-mile pole in 1 minute and 3/5. They're down the backstretch. Shiv continues to lead the way. Gray Frost second, 3 parts of a length. Stormy Wiz trots up on the outside, and Ratajack along the rail. Send the Messages now picked up some cover, and Bone Road continues to save ground. Far outside, Message from Dan, and I'm Moving there hub to hub as they trot by 3/4 in 131-3. Moving around the far turn. Still in command, he's been there every step of the way. Shiv, second ahead along the rail. Gray Wiz up on the outside. Comes Stormy Wiz and Gray Frost along the rail. On the far outside, Ratajack there into the stretch. Shiv continues to lead the way. Gray Frost the passing lane. Stormy Wiz between horses. Here's Bone Road with a late move. Deep stretch, it's going to be Shiv. Tight for second, the 2's there. Stormy Wiz tight for the show spot. The 4th, number 9, Shiv. 5-year-old bay horse by Scimitar out of Only First. Owned by trainer Tom Blankenship and Ralph Sturr Jr. of Asheville. Driven wire to wire by David Miller to cover the mile here in 2:01-3. and establish a lifetime best. Number 9, Shiv, the winner of tonight's 4th race. 2, Stormy Wiz, got up second. 4, Gray Frost was third. And number 5, Bone Road was 4th. Result of race 4 is now official. Windows are open on the 5th. $8,000 in tonight's twin trifecta carryover. No changes in the Here's the field for tonight's 5th race as they pray to the post. $8,000 in the twin trifecta 1B final, driven by Carol Smith. 2, Hill, Sassy Sis, and Steve Carter. 3, Hand Over the Loot, and the driver is David Myers. 4, Mighty Appealing, Kenny Edwards aboard. 5, Grand Debonair with Dan Ader in the bike. Number 6, Signed Original, and the driver is Mike Wilder. Number 7 is Verbaloxy with Charlie Little. Number 8, Pans Vestite and Jerry Kutchbach Jr. Number 9, Blessed Bets and David Miller. 10, Dusty Gill. Debbie Rucker will be in the sulky. That is the field for tonight's 5th race, $8,000. And there they go. They're off and trotting. Grand Debonair between horses takes the lead. Verbaloxy is up on the far outside second. Closing between horses, Pans Vestite to third, and B final 4th along the rail. Mighty Appealing is up on the outside of Hill, Sassy Sis to 6th. Into 7th, Hand Over the Loot from out of the 2nd tier, Dusty Gill. Signed Original and Blessed Bets is 10th and last as they trot by the opening quarter in 28 and 2. Trotters for the 5th in parade, racing past the stands to the half-mile pole. Grand Debonair continues to lead the way. With a rush on the outside, Verbaloxy at 80-1 is up to challenge. Verbaloxy, that may have been a little bit premature as they swing around the lower turn. Trot to the half-mile pole. Grand Debonair continues to lead the way. Verbaloxy is up on the outside. Here comes Pans Vestite. He's now racing in drag. And they're at the half-mile pole in 58-1. They're out of the turn and down the backstretch. Little bit of confusion off stride. The 1 went on a break, interfering with the 2, and the 4 just got caught. They're at the half in 58-1. They're down the backstretch. Bouncing right along Grand Debonair. Pans Vestite in second. Here comes Hand Over the Loot in third, ranging up on the far outside. Dusty Gill steadily closing between horses. Blessed Bets in 129, trotting around the far turn. Grand Debonair 3 parts of a length. Here's Pans Vestite up on the outside. Hand Over the Loot, a steady gain along the rail. Blessed Bets on the far outside. We're down to these 4 inside the final 1/8 of a mile. Pans Vestite up on the outside. Grand Debonair. Here comes Hand Over the Loot with 1 final bid. Deep stretch, it's Pans Vestite. Grand Debonair second, and it's going to be close with the 3, Hand Over the Loot. Inquiry sign has been taken down. Result of the 5th race now official, as the incident at the half-mile pole doesn't involve the top 4 finishers. 8-5 exacta, $239.40, and the first half of the $1 twin trifecta, $469.30. Windows are now open on tonight's 6th race. Number 4, Classy Falcon, continues on Lasix. In the winner's circle, Jerry Kutchbach Jr. and Pans Vestite, a 4-year-old based out of Super Gill, out of Psychologist, owned by Fred Merriman of Frazeysburg. Pans Vestite trots the mile here in 1:59.3 to establish a lifetime best. Post time will be in 14 minutes at 9:13. The 6th, number 1, Priminetta, owned by Rick Moon Jr., Charlie Stein, and Robert Baker, driven by David Miller. Number 2, Perfect Model, owned by Donald and Carol Lehman with Jack Daly. 3, Colleen's Candy Cam, owned by Robert and Sandra Johnson with Jeff Fout. 4, Classy Falcon, owned by drivers Sandy Beatty and Ann Ellis, and Classy Falcon continues to race on Lasix. 5, Red Romaine, owned by David Knoll with Mike Wilder. 6, Look Sinja, owned by Jack Swagler and Arthur Apking with Kevin Brown. 7 is Music City Jesse, owned by B.L. Conway with Mark Evers. And number 8 is Humming String, owned by John Rogers and Mike Stearns. Rocky Stidham will be in the sulky. That is the field here for tonight's 6. There they go. They're off and pacing, middle of the racetrack. Red Romaine takes the lead, followed by Priminetta along the rail. Colleen's Candy Cam in the center. Here comes Perfect Metal to gain a nice spot along the rail, 4th. On the turn, Classy Falcon moves in to be 5th. Look Sinja, Music City Jesse, and Humming Strings. Battle Royal here for command of the quarter-mile pole. With a rush on the outside, Colleen's Candy Cam now gets ahead in front. Quick opening panel, 27-4. Racing past the stands to the half-mile pole, and seating arrangements are complete. Colleen's Candy Cam leads by 2. Red Romaine is in the second. Perfect Model drives wide and hard, followed by Priminetta, and after that, Classy Falcon up on the outside. Look Sinja. Here comes Humming Strings, and Music City Jesse is now 8th between horses. They're at the half-mile pole. 6-5 favorite zings them past the half in 57. Perfect Model is there by 2.5. Up the backstretch in the second, Colleen's Candy Cam, followed by Red Romaine. Starting up on the outside, Priminetta. Next wave of challengers on the outside is led by Look Sinja and Classy Falcon along the rail. Music City Jesse is 7th, and Humming Strings is 8th on the outside. Racing to 3/4. Perfect Model with a 6-length lead. Humming Strings is flying on the far outside, 126-2. Around the far turn, you better take a long look at Humming Strings, because she has just gone from worst to first. Humming Strings on the far outside now gets the lead. Perfect Model trying to fight back. Priminetta is in the center. Up on the far outside, deep stretch. Look Sinja moving away on top. It's Humming Strings. Look Sinja, Humming Strings rocks to the lead. 6 is up second. Look Sinja 1, Priminetta 3rd. Here is Humming Strings, improving 4-year-old bay mare by Precious Bunny out of Stradivarius, owned by John Rogers and Mike Stearns of Columbus, ran and trained by Rocky Stidham, covering that mile here in 1:58.1 to establish a lifetime best. Number 8, Humming Strings, the winner, and the inquiry sign is up, and please hold all tickets. Number 1, Sissy's Girl, owned by Mark McLean Sr., driven by Lance Wygant. 2, Mostly Bridget, now owned by David and Lisa Young. David and Lisa Young own. Jack Morgan drives. 3, Sunshine Annie, owned by Jim Arledge and John Rhodes Jr., and a driver change to Del S. Miller. 4, Touch of Summer, now owned and driven by Tom Lovely. Number 5 is Highland Tranquil, owned by Rose Adam with Dan Ader. 6, Moving On Up, owned by Terry Kraft, and the driver is Greg Luther. Number 7, BD Falcon, owned by Robert Palmer with David Miller. Number 8, Lady Centurion, owned by Jim Hackett with Jeff Fout. Number 9, Grimke, owned by Ruth Taylor, driven by Steve Carter. 10 is Attitude, owned by Troy Thomas. Mike Wilder will be in the sulky. Field for race 7, 6 minutes till post. All lined up. They're on their way. Highland Tranquil takes the lead, moving on up between horses up on the far outside. BD Falcon, they're down the backstretch. Mostly Bridget moves in to be 4th, and Sissy's Girl is 5th. From out of the second tier, Attitude, late lever on the outside, Sunshine Annie. Touch of Summer, followed up on the outside by Lady Centurion and the newcomer Grimke. As they move by the opening quarter-mile pole, Highland Tranquil sets them by their 27-4. Speeding past the stands to the half-mile pole. Highland Tranquil cuts this one out for Dan Ader, a length and a half. Moving on up is in the second between horses, Sissy Girl, wide to the outside, Attitude. As they move under the finish line the first time, head to the half-mile pole. Highland Tranquil leads the way. Sissy's Girl first up on the outside. She takes Attitude along with her. Moving on up is Fighting Back along the rail. Driving up on the outside, Beatty Falcon after that, mostly Bridget. In between horses, Sunshine Annie in seventh. Grimkey is eighth. Touch of Summer ninth on the outside, and Lady Centurion 58 and 3. Side by side and stride for stride down the back stretch. Heading to the final quarter. Nearest the rail, Highland Tranquil by a nose. Sissy's Girl is up on the outside second. Moving on up in third. Attitude between horses, having to do more. On the far outside, Beatty Falcon. Here comes Touch of Summer on the far outside. Moving by 3/4 in 1:28. Field drives around the far turn. Highland Tranquil continues to lead the way. Moving on up is up on the outside. Closing back on the rail, Attitude in the middle of the racetrack. Beatty Falcon. Touch of Summer on the far outside. Moving on up now, gets ahead in front. Highland Tranquil. Here comes Touch of Summer on the far outside to get the lead. Here comes Tom Lovely in Touch of Summer and a black 3-year-old filly by Amity Shuff out of Summer's Chair. Now owned, ran, and trained by Tom Lovely from Ludlow Falls, Ohio. Covering the mile here in 1:59 to establish a lifetime best. Number 4, Touch of Summer, the winner of tonight's 7th race. 4-6 exacta, $222 even. Twin trifecta carryover, $98.69. Regular try, $17.55.40. Windows are now open on race 8, start of the final pick 3. No changes in the 8th. 9th race, scratch 4, Gotta Go Johnny Sick. 10th race, number 9, Dare to Cross. The driver will be Jack Morgan. Post time in 15 minutes at 9:59. Jay Cohen brings the field out onto the track for tonight's 8th race, along with Parade Marshal Kathy McDonald. 7th leg of the Steeplechase Village Luxury Family Reynolds 2-year-old Colton Gelding Series. Number 1, Set the Agenda, owned by Ben Eggers, James E., and James Morris with David Miller. 2, Cod Fayel, owned by Jim Borchard with Bill Walters. 3, Southern Art, owned by Chester Alt with Tom Brinkerhoff. 4, Art Dialing, owned by Mitchell, George, and Sanford Barron with David Rankin. Number 5, Dragon Again, owned by Ed Moenax with Kelly O'Donnell in the bike. Number 6 is Cam Handsome Fella, owned by Richard Garrison with Dan Ader. 7 is Gambler's Lair, owned by Chris Fout, brings him out, and Jeff Fout has the drive. 8, Hesperus Hanover, owned by Ruth Myers with Russell Schwartz. 9, Nevada Gold, owned by the Brittany Farms with Mike Wilder. 10, Scoot and Whiz, owned by Bill White's White Creek Stable. Dave Hawk will be in the sulky. Field for the 8th, 5 minutes till post. And there they go. They're off and pacing. Art Dialing between horses takes the lead, Set the Agenda along the rail. Cod Fayel is up on the outside. Scoot and Whiz gaining nicely out of the second tier. In between horses, Southern Art, and at the end it's Dragon Again. Fought up on the outside by Cam Handsome Fella, Gambler's Lair, Hesperus Hanover, and Nevada Gold. Field of 10 2-year-olds fly into the quarter-mile pole. Set the Agenda very wide to the outside now, gets the lead by the opening panel in 27 4/5. Racing past the stands to the half-mile pole. Action galore here. Set the Agenda up on the outside of Art Dialing. Art Dialing stung the big guy pretty good. Followed by Cod Fayel and Scoot and Whiz. Gap of 6 to Southern Art. Dragon Again begins to pick it up. Along the rail, long shot, Cam Handsome Fella. Gambler's Lair, Hesperus Hanover, and Nevada Gold, hoping things will pan out from the back. They're at the half-mile pole in a crisp 57 1. They're out of the turn and down the backstretch. Out on top, it's Set the Agenda, who leads the way. Scootin' Whiz and Dragon Again both come to the outside. Little more than 3/8 of a mile to pace. The table is now set for Set the Agenda. Cocked, locked, and ready to rock. Art dialing up on the outside. Scootin' Whiz, he cannot go on. Here's Dragon Again, absolutely flying on the far outside. Racing by 3/4 in a quick 1:26 and 3. Jumping off stride further back in the field, that was Gambler's Lair. Field moves to the head of the stretch. Set the Agenda brings him on home. Art Down is up on the outside second. Codfiel third. Dragon Again has flattened out. Under confident handling, it is Set the Agenda who leads the way. It's Set the Agenda. Art Down up on the outside. Set the Agenda in front. Number 1, Set the Agenda. Very nice 2-year-old bay colt by Die Laughing out of Glow Slothfully by Storm Damage. Owned by Ben Eggers, James E. and James Morris, all of Ohio. Trained by Ben Eggers. Driven tonight by David Miller to cover the mile in a lifetime best of 154 and 3. Number 1, Set the Agenda, the unofficial winner of tonight's 8th race. Driving double tonight for the purple and white, David Miller. It's driven by Dallas Miller. 2, Smokey Butler, owned by Jeff and Ethel Dennis, and the rangeman is Darren Mauser. 3, Rembrandt's Max, owned by Jim Chaliff and David Harris. The driver is Mike Wilder. 4, Gotta Go Johnny Has Been Scratched, sick. 5, Tucson L, owned by Rhonda Stidham and Linda May with Rocky Stidham in the bike. 6, Mr. L, owned by Mark Clark with David Miller. 7 is Township Bubba, owned by Thomas and Dan Ryan with Brad Hanners. 8, Look There, owned by Perry Lambert and Alice Kidd with Bob Harper. Number 9, Matt Tart's Log, owned by Gary Bobo in the Star Country Stable. Dave Hawk will be in the sulky. Scratch number 4. I think I'm going to move it up. And there they go. They're off and pacing. Matt Tart's Log on the far outside. Mr. L is going to leave tonight. So is Township Bubba, and along the rail, Sam Sir Knight. They're down the backstretch. Tucson L drives up on the outside, followed by Smokey Butler. After that, Rembrandt's Max, and the trailer is Look There to the quarter-mile pole, and they're really scrambling now. Township Bubba is there, 3 parts of a length. Matt Tart's Log overcomes the outside tier, drives up on the outside with You Can Call Me Tucson L. 28 seconds flat, 4 deep past the stands to the half-mile pole. Matt Tart's Log forges to the front. Driving up on the outside, Tucson L second. Township Bubba and Mr. L. Smokey Butler is underway. Sam Sir Knight is 5th. Ranging up on the outside, Rembrandt's Max, and the trailer is Look There. Around the clubhouse, turn to the half-mile pole. Plenty of action in the 9th. Tucson L has got the lead. Mr. L power sweeps on the outside. Second, they're at the half. 57 and 4. They're out of the turn and down the backstretch. We'll see if the even money favorite can survive. First over, Tucson L has got the top by a half a length. Right alongside in second, Mr. L. Moving up on the outside, Smokey Butler and Matt Tart's Logs giving the rail in 4th. Ranging up on the outside, Rembrandt's Max. Township Bubba can't go on. Sam Sir Knight, the trailer is Look There. They're hub to hub. Racing by 3/4 in 1:26 and 2. Moving around the far turn, Mr. L on the outside is still looking. Tucson L right in the eye. 3 wide on the far outside comes Smokey Butler as the field straightens away. Mr. L in the center. Tucson L along the rail. Matt Tart's Log the passing lane. Here comes Smokey Butler up on the far outside. Mr. L under the whip is going to get it. 6, Mr. L. 4-year-old bay gelding by Daria 2 out of CL Ravina. Owned and trained in Springfield, Ohio by Mark Clark. Hard driven by David Miller to cover the mile in 1:56.1. That'll establish a lifetime best for 6 Mr. Allen. That's a 3-bagger for David Miller tonight. The cart trick. 6-2 exact to 26 down. Fourth. 7, make that 5-2-7. 5-2-7, scratch 3-1. Field to the post, the number 1 is Kata. Owned by Kim Patterson, driven by Brad Henners. 2, Fritzy Scooter, owned by William Fritz and Gerald McHenry, and the driver is David Miller. 3, Mostly Jazz, owned, driven, and trained by Perry Lambert. 4, Velvet Siren, owned by the Triple Bogey stable with Del S. Miller. 5, Little Blizzard, owned by Bill Meadow with Darren Mauser. 6, Come On Tiger, owned by Suzanne Norflus and Jerry Summers with Dan Ader. 7, Delusion of Grandeur, owned by Gerald, Diana, Jeff Cimini, Robert Salzberger, and Stan Bayless with Terry Thomas. Number 8 is Stu Ball, owned by Home Stock Farm with David Hawk. 9, Dare to Cross, owned by Dana Idens and Ray Gruber, a driver change to Jack Morgan. Perry Lambert to drive the 3, Jack Morgan to drive the 9. Starting gate is underway. Field is now in motion. And there they go. They're off and pacing. Velvet Siren between horses takes the lead, and Fritzy Scooter along the rail, followed up by Kata. Mostly Jazz in the center, rushing up on the far outside. Come On Tiger, late lever, Stu Ball. Little Blizzard moves in to be 7th, 8th on the turn. Comes Delusion of Grandeur, and the trailer is Dare to Cross as they battle for position to the quarter-mile pole. Velvet Siren has got the lead. Come On Tiger swings up on the outside along the rail. Fritzy Scooter, solid 27-3. Past the stands they roll to the half-mile pole. Speed duel in progress. Come On Tiger up on the outside. Velvet Siren on the rail. Nobody's asking for a quarter, and nobody's giving one as the 1 Kata has jumped off stride. Around the paddock, turn to the half-mile pole. Come On Tiger on the outside of Velvet Siren. David Miller is salivating. He's licking his chops with Fritzy Scooter. 56-2. Up the backstretch. Nearest the rail, it's still Velvet Siren. Come On Tiger win a torture chamber mile in here. Fritzy Scooter is on the bit, doubled up in the pocket. Stu Ball is on the attack on the far outside. Mostly Jazz along the rail. Delusion of Grandeur driving wide and hard on the extreme outside. Little Blizzard, Dare to Cross, and Kata wide open here as they move into 3/4. Delusion of Grandeur kicks in on the far outside in a quick 1:26. Super effective pacers move to the top of the stretch. Velvet Siren, Fritzy Scooter, cocked, locked, and I mean ready to rock, but he's going to have to wait for the passing lane. They're into the stretch. Here comes Delusion of Grandeur up on the outside. Velvet Siren, Fritzy Scooter trying to bull his way from between horses, and does. Delusion of Grandeur. Fritzy Scooter now gets the lead. Here comes the unofficial winner of tonight's 10th and final race, 2, Fritzy Scooter, a 3-year-old bay gelding by Tudor Scooter out of Fritzy Capri. Owned by Bill Fritz and Gerald McHenry of Mechanicsburg in London, Ohio. Trained by Richard Fitz. Hard driven tonight by David Miller to cover the mile in 1:56.3. Number 2, Fritzy Scooter, the unofficial winner of tonight's 10th race. David Miller takes home the final pick 3, giving him 4 victories on tonight's program.